Welcome to Intersection Chats. I am Reme Mancera, a personal brand story strategist, and today we are going to talk about the intersection between personal brand story and burnout prevention. And I am here today with Mouna. So excited to have this conversation. Welcome, Mouna.
Thank you, Reme. Thank you so much for having me. It's exciting to be here with you today, especially exciting topic.
Yes. First, if you want, please introduce you about what is your work.
So essentially, I'm a mindfulness teacher and I specialize in burnout prevention, really helping others to recenter and be grounded when everything is on fire so you can make clearer decisions and navigate life and business from a little more peaceful space.
Nice. So let's go to the topic. In your experience, what is the connection between personal brand story and burnout prevention?
It's a very, very deep question. So it's a deep question that is also very interlaced. That's what I loved when you approached me to talk about this topic. When we think about burnout, we often would define it as something that is very much just overexhaustion. When you physically, mentally, emotionally, you just can't take it anymore and you break down, and your body will remind you how important it is to take care of yourself. But burnout is just a symptom. And it's kind of like the tip of the iceberg that shows up when we've been ignoring certain things for too long. It can be indeed, of course, because of some hard stuff we can deny, like if you're being bullied at work, have very toxic environments. It can be also due to personal circumstances, juggling too much personal life and work issues and everything at the same time. At the end is when you're getting very overwhelmed and that the stress and the challenges of life are higher than your own capacity. And we're going to come to the stories we're telling ourselves. So, a lot to do with storytelling comes to be shown very obviously when we start digging in these conditioning that we have and the stories we are telling ourselves and therefore end up telling others. So when you work closely with your clients and you tell me a little more about it, you probably would have seen some kind of like trauma flaring up and some burnout because it's getting too much to handle everything. And looking at the strategy of your personal brands, most people get stuck because of those stories that they grow up with or they have been conditioned to and they believe about themselves, which become limiting as opposed to something that serves them. How is it for you? Like, do you get to debunk a little bit of that?
Yeah. So the thing with my clients is like, of course, we go deep into their own journey. So it's like there are certain moments that has been tough and things that show up in the sense of how we are just exploring every pivotal moment and things that has been important for them. So of course there are certain things that even if they are not going to share as part of their personal brand story for their business is are things that we talk about because they are important things in their lives. And that's why for me it's so important to have this space where I work one on one because they are deep conversations, and I feel that's the at least for me it's like the easier way to create a space where people feel comfortable sharing those kind of topics. And so yeah, I totally see how even I work a lot with people that they are pivoting in their business, and they are, you can see how in their times that they have been pivoting, how there are parts that are, excuse me, that are connected to burnout in the sense of how they have changed things, leaving even businesses that they look as something successful from outside, but inside they were misaligned and they feel like I need to stop. So I have several clients that this kind of stage make them to change and make a big change. I have in mind someone that she was a manager in Nike and super high level in the corporate, and she left that and started her own business. So she needed to make that change because that was what makes sense for her, and now she's helping others to unleash their full potential. So I totally see the connection, especially how these pivoting moments, in the sense of how you need to check your priorities and your body is telling you to stop and to make sense, look at what are you doing, and make decisions. So I see how that's like something big in the lives of my clients, and how that is important. And as you say, sometimes it's just something that is showing a symptom, but the root is totally different.
Mm, yeah. And when you start thinking of the narrative of how am I going to build my brand, how I'm going to show up on social media, how I'm going to show up as a business owner, it's and personal branding doesn't need to be just if you're owning your business. You can be building your profile, like a thought leader in your industry whilst being employed. Is still, it's getting personal. And when you have unresolved stuff, they tend to come up because this is like the story you getting ready to tell others. But are you very clear about it with yourself? Is it really true and aligned with who you are and who you want to be? Or is there like this misalignment, like you say? And I think that misalignment is what's creating friction. Like when you try to fit in a box that isn't yours to begin with, then you started seeing those symptoms flaring up.
Mm. Yeah, and something that you mentioned about the clarity, about, yeah, the inner stories that you are telling yourself and the stories that you want to share and how you want to show up for your business. Sometimes, especially, I feel like when you are in a moment of pre-burnout, let's say, is like, you if you don't have really clarity on how you are doing this just overwhelming you more, because it's like you don't have the capacity to think clearly and to be able to articulate your thoughts in a way that is connected to your goals. Because first of all, maybe you are in a moment where your goals are not clear anymore, and then it's like you don't have the mental space to think about this, and make decisions. So I feel like is is connected in the way that if you are if you have the clarity on what is the narrative that you want to share, that's going to help you in a way to make things easier, because you know what you want to highlight, you know what stories you want to share, and how you feel comfortable with them, because you have thought through this and decide, okay, yeah, I feel comfortable with this, I set the boundaries in this part, I don't want to share about this one, and then you have the clarity. But I feel that this is work that is more interesting to do before, as a prevention, because otherwise in the middle of the storm, let's say, it's difficult to do that because you don't have the capacity, and you need to, I feel like this, like in terms of priorities, there is something else that you need to take care first, and it's like yourself in a more general way, and then you can look for, okay, my business, my strategy, and all of that. I would love to know your thoughts on this.
Yeah. The thing is, like, it's going to sound really bad what I'm going to say, but it's just like when I started and I was very much focusing on burnout prevention, there was a reality that as much as some companies were happy to talk about, burnout prevention workshops and startups accelerators, because everyone knows roughly now what it costs for you to completely break down and then needing to take a year off, because you can't run your business if your burnout gets that bad that you're in the hospital. However, like many things, especially when it comes to illnesses, until you get sick, you don't really start taking the medication for it. And that's what it is when it comes like to the prevention side. I think a lot of the prevention is done by people who know what it is like. And even when you burn out, you tend to repeat the burnout circle until you kind of like go really deep down to the roots. And also, even when you go down to the roots, like you don't resolve your entire life story and overnight. So it takes work and time and patience. So you might be juggling sometime with that friction of extreme exhaustion, like finding your way to navigate things. So I understand that ideally we want to be clear about our origin story, before we need it, or we want to constantly be taking care of ourselves before we hit like big life challenges. But in reality, I see a lot of clients that are actually almost doing their brand work as they are discovering themselves. And I see a lot of brand strategists that are having to face, coming to ask me about resilience or have these conversations because they find themselves becoming a therapist almost. Because when you have someone breaking down, facing that frustration of, who am I? How the fuck do I share like the true story of what I've been through? And yeah, it can be triggering. But I think this is what I think is just we need to give ourselves grace no matter what we're doing, whether you're working on yourself, on your own self development, on trying to get to know yourself, or whether you're trying to grow and build your empire. Both journeys are extremely challenging, and we can only enjoy our life if we learn how to enjoy it and learn how to enjoy the fun of getting to know your personal story or getting to know a side of yourself or building something complicated. So yeah, that's what I think of course it's challenging, but we got to cut ourselves some slack.
um, Based on what you say about the big origin story, this is something that I have thought a lot about. One of the things that yeah, a lot of my clients feel overwhelmed because they feel they don't have an epic story. And that was the origin of me thinking about this in a different way, and thinking, okay, how I can do this in a different way. And what I decided to try was, instead of looking for one big story, looking for meaningful moments. So I created this framework, which is the 10 story connector framework. And there I help them to identify meaningful moments. And from outside, without context, they can look like doesn't make sense even, or they are small. But when you share the context, it makes a lot of sense when you are trying to talk about your business and what is important for you and your values and the way that you approach your work. And I like to use one specific example because I feel it's really yeah, it's really illustrating this. One of my clients, she's a web designer, and one of her story connectors is her drinking a glass of wine in her garden. So that doesn't look as a epic or dramatic moment at all, but is helping her to explain how in one season she's working on the garden, and then in the next season she's enjoying the garden and having this uh, being there, just enjoying this the nice place. And it's connected to her work because she does intensive web design services where she gets all the tools that she needs, all the resources in a season. She do for them in an intensive way, and then her clients is enjoying the result, enjoying the garden. So for her was a moment of, oh, I never thought about using this, but total makes a lot of sense. So the idea is how something that could look as small or without sense, when you share the meaning, it has a lot of sense. So what I mean with that is, like, for personal brand story, sometimes we tend to think of something that is like huge in our life, this turning point. But I feel like, why don't use these smaller moments? And some of them are big, don't get me wrong, but you are the one deciding how you approach them and how you share them in a ways that, as you said, you take it, you give yourself grace, you are doing things in a kind way for yourself and for your own capacity. So that's an approach that I feel in the work that I do can make things a bit easier for people that maybe are navigating a tough time. Is like, don't expect you to have this one perfectly packaged story. It's like, let's use these moments, let's connect them. And some of them are big, but some of them can be smaller, but really meaningful for you to use as a bridge. So even I feel these are something that I feel a lot when working with clients, how having clarity on the stories that you are going to share is really useful to like make peace with the stories that you are telling to yourself, like the inner narratives. And I feel like that must be something really important in the work that you do, these inner narratives, the stories that we tell ourselves. So I would love to know what has been your experience around that, around the inner stories.
Mm. I think there's like three folds that resonated with what you said. This, first of all, this thing that people are obsessed about the big origin story, the big mountain, the big milestone is what get some people frozen when it's like when they try to do goal setting. There's just like
Mhm.
the perfectionism that kicks in, trying to, oh, this needs to be perfect. I need to nail it. And they forget that this is just the direction. Your goal is just the direction. You can amend things can change, things can grow. And in the meantime, you have little milestones these small wins. So I feel like it's really the framework works well for storytelling, personal branding, goal setting, getting better. It's like focusing on one step at a time instead of trying to climb the mountain in one go, but to really going like this little step, these next 5 minutes, this next hour. And when it comes to the stories we tell ourselves, personal branding gets triggering because it echoes to this traumatic narratives that we either might have been growing up or are trying to compete with. There's almost this trauma competition where people feel like they didn't have enough interesting things in their lives or enough big traumatic things in their life. And your glass of wine example is just so beautiful. Like, I think it really represents that it doesn't always need to be that deep, because a life can be very simple if we simplify it, if we cut down these milestones, if we shorten the step, it gets easier. And most coaches, for example, will have this like rags to riches story. I came from nothing, I built myself on the ground up. Not everyone needs to have that type of story. And if you hear when you hear the same story over and over again, it's not almost not personal anymore. I feel like it became
Mm.
public knowledge. That's what happens. So when you hear something a little different, I'd be more inclined to remember the glass of wine story of someone who would be able to remind me of this precious little moment and to enjoy life, as opposed to the same good old story everyone else is repeating. So I guess that's echoing as well with what you're doing, right? When you have like people freaking out, trying to figuring everything in one go, almost like their life story in one go, and being like, well, let's start from the first step.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that's something that we need to remember. all of us. Like it's, at least for me, it's like, yeah, you approach things in a way that are like easier to digest, not try to hold the whole thing at once.
Yeah.
And
And
something
make
that
it,
is
I think as well, like making it real.
mm,
Like that glass of wine in the garden is real. It's there. You can look out the window and see the garden, or your balcony, or your front door, or your cozy sofa, whatever it is. And like one framework that works in like mindfulness, for example, when it comes to gratitude, which I use, is like being able to focus on something very, very tiny and very specific.
mm.
Not, oh, I'm just grateful to be alive, but like be as specific as I'm grateful to have a roof over my head, allowing me to put music on and then dance naked in my living room because that makes me feel alive.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
like that little tiny detail.
Yeah, because then it's like, as you say, more real. It's like it's not this abstract big thing. It's something real that you can feel and you can make in your mind. And I feel like, and I would love to know also your approach in this. Is like for me becoming a my own the business owners and my own business and all that has been a real personal growth development in the sense of knowing yourself and all the things that are you are scared of. There are, everything is coming out in a way that is like, even if you haven't faced it before, it's going to show up in the way that you are building your while building your business. So it's not that you are going to separate, um, but it's going to be, yeah, a great way to self knowledge. I believe. I don't know. That has been my experience at least. I would love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I just posted about it like last week on LinkedIn. Like solo, especially solopreneurship. I think in general, even if you're a founder and have a team, like this entrepreneurial adventure is gonna trigger the shit out of you. Like all your wounds are gonna come out. Like imagine if you have abandonment wounds, right? You have to face rejection constantly, trying to put your business out there, promote your business. Every person that you see that liked what you that saw what you did and didn't like it feels like a personal insult. Like it is just so triggering. And that's why I like to work with entrepreneurs as well, because we get to be playful with these. And you can be like, oh, this is so triggering. Or you can, like you do, get excited about getting to know these parts of yourself and getting to grow from it. Like, oh, cool. Now I've got the chance to look at this shit in the eye and start working on it.
Yeah, this is something especially around visibility for me, because all my life has been this shy a person that wants to hide and not having the spotlight. And now I'm in a business that I need to put the spotlight on myself if I want more people to know about my business. And then there is like, that's like explosion of feelings there, and it has been a growth process for sure. So yeah, but this I for a lot of people that, so the people that I work with, most of them are in two groups. One of them is those feeling they don't have an epic story, and the other group is feeling that they have so many different live experiences, they don't know which one to choose and how to make sense that different thing for what they do now. So those are the main groups that I work with. And for both of them, storytelling is overwhelming. And I connect with that overwhelm because for me, I remember when I started my business, I was so have so much pressure on this idea. You need to share your story. You need to be vulnerable online. You need to show up. And I don't want to be vulnerable. I want to, I don't have an epic story to share. So I feel so connected to that overwhelm. And it has been a process of yeah, you are the one deciding what you share. And for me, which is really important, is like connecting each story to something related to my service, my offer in my business, my audience, because then I have a reason why I am sharing that, and I know why. And that's something that is really helpful also for my clients. It's like they know, okay, I am sharing this story and it makes sense because it's connected to this specific part of my business, and it's connected to the people that I want to talk to and want to help them. But I remember at the beginning for me was really, really challenging because all the advice that I got was totally against the things that I want as a person. It was like, no, I don't want to do this. And then it's like changing the perspective and say, okay, how I can do it in a way that makes sense for me? How can I do it in a way that I feel comfortable, but at the same time, I am sharing my values, I am showing up for my business, but in a way that I feel comfortable and I am the one setting the boundaries around my privacy. But at the same time, I am letting the people know why this work that I do is important to me.
Mm, yeah, I really see what you mean. And that's like what I try to do when it comes to well-being is like you take the rules, you learn from them, and you break them to make them fit you
Mm.
instead of break yourself to try to fit them. And storytelling is a beautiful discipline. It's been so helpful for me to get guidance from my editor as I'm writing my memoir. And it's a big exercise, especially when it comes to your stories and everything you describe about these little scenes. And one of the most helpful part of the work, working with like a book coach and learning to develop your stories, is learning to romanticize my life. So
Mm.
now I try to do it. It's practice, right? It's just practice. How you can get better at telling stories is by practicing. So I practice with myself, not only when I'm writing the book or when I'm editing the scenes, but I live in Bangkok. I order a taxi bike. The bike arrives. As I'm waiting at the lobby, I take the time to look around me and I describe using my five senses. I describe how green the plants are in the garden, how fresh I can feel the aircon from the lobby slowly reducing behind me. I romanticize the breeze in my face despite the pollution, that whilst the wind is blowing, I can still look around and see the details, like the cat of this shop owner laying at the front door like a carpet. And it is these details and how we use our senses that help us make our stories more alive, even if it's details. And that's like one of the, I think one of the best recommendation I can give to anyone who wants to get better at storytelling is that just take any moment of your day to day and romanticize it using your five senses, and you'll get already something drastically different just from a commute in the tube.
Love that. Thank you for that exercise. And I totally agree on the idea of how storytelling is a practice. And I feel like, especially around business, there is a lot of feeling that storytelling need to be serious, and it's something like you need to approach in this professional, serious way. And to me, I want to bring the idea of this can be joyful, it can be playful, we can play with our stories. And one exercise that I do, I have a session that is a storytelling game session. And there we have a wheel. We spin the wheel, and there are different storytelling styles. Like from the point of view of something, like if it's a theater play, sharing us is in suspense or fantasy, and so on. So we have one story, one little story, and we spin the wheel and choose the whatever the storytelling style is, as a group, as a collective, we play our imaginations together and we build up that story, but in that style. So that's a way for us to practice around storytelling. It's joyful, it's playful, but at the same time, it's making our muscle work. So when later we go to our own storytelling, we can think about, okay, how I can share this same story. Maybe it's a story about how your client feels before working with you. What is their stage? And then there you can think, okay, how I can share this same story from a different perspective. Let's say one of the samples it was around how my potential clients feels after a podcast interview, and it's like, okay, how the point of view of the mic that was there during the interview and after that, that was making myself look at the scene in a different way and needed to narrate in a different way. So I invite my clients to do that, and the people that I work with, it's like, okay, some object that you use in that scene, this is the object that is narrating the scene. How will be it? And that plays with your brain, and it's like a way to exercise as a muscle, as you said. So I love that exercise of just wherever is the situation, use it to try to narrate this and romanticize the scene. I love that as well.
And I love your wheel. It's definitely a good. There's definitely a good inspiration here, that I'll also share with my network, because it's reminding me improv theater, and how improv theater is just a great reminder of how to take things less seriously. Because I think that's what we need. Most of the time, we make ourselves sick because we put too much pressure on ourselves. And for a reason, okay, we want to succeed, we want to get things right, and it's fine. But when you strip the joy out of it, you make yourself miserable. So is life worth living if you're miserable every step of it?
Mm.
Or is it worth fighting for a life that can be more joyful, more giving, that can make you more happy? And I think this is it. We say that we don't burn out because we're doing too much, but we burn out because we're not doing enough of what we love.
Mm.
And I think it's just trying to remind ourselves constantly, what do we love? What do we enjoy? Can we bring more of that? And I love this, that I can picture even in a very serious corporate office, people playing with the wheel and telling different stories. And it's a great team bonding exercise. And why we need to be so serious. Like, this is so 50s, type of like work office environment imagination.
uh, yeah, and this you said something that is I want to ask you about that. But yeah, I totally agree on bring the playfulness. That's something big for me. It's like how we can make this more fun and enjoy that, because it's I want to be enjoying. I don't want to be, as you said, feeling miserable. I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned how when we are doing something that we love, and the connection with burnout, I'm really interested, because I feel like sometimes, of course, there are situations where it comes from something doesn't have meaning for us and all that, but I would love to know how, if in your experience, how has been like people that are really trying to build something that they love, but they are putting a lot of pressure on themselves, and they are just running into burnout, but this for something that they actually love, for a project or a business that they is actually fulfilling, and they want to be more of that, do more of that, but in the process they are burning them out themselves. I would love to know what has been your experience into this and your thoughts.
Mm. Well, see, that's the thing. It's like, are they really enjoying the building phase of
Mm.
their passion? Or are you actually just enjoying the idea of the final result? That's what makes the biggest difference, right? You
Mm.
can be very passionate about your job, but eventually work is work. So your passion is going to kind of like be themed over time, because what you're doing or passion is becoming your day to day. So it's kind of like stripping away the fairy tale, which is okay, it's fine. And you can still be very passionate about your project and you can still lead yourself to burnout. But it's like, did you incorporate enough of recovery moments? Did you
Mm.
incorporate enough of these moments that help you fill up your cup? So if you constantly, it's very like cliche. I don't want to sound like ChatGPT, but really is you're running on empty. It's like a battery that is being sucked out of all its energy. And we think willpower does everything. We always talk about motivation, willpower, but it's like a battery as well. You have a limited quantity of it. And maybe you have so much because you're so passionate, you're going to have 3 years worth of it. But eventually, if you keep on just draining the same battery and not filling it up, or if you fill it up a tiny bit, but you drain it even more and you go in minuses, it's not it's not going to work. And that's what I'm saying about doing stuff you love, is doing stuff that replenishes you. So if you love the work you do, uh, you're supporting others with their stories. But in parallel, if you have 1 month where you're just doing accounting every day and you're doing content creation every day, but whilst what you actually love is supporting people with their storytelling, spinning that wheel, giving them workshops and exercises, you are passionate about your work, but your day to day is not filled by stuff that you love doing. So your challenge would be to look at how can you delegate these tasks that you don't like to do, and how do you fill your day with that stuff that you enjoy. And there's plenty of different avenues for this, even like outside of, oh, I cannot afford to hire. Yeah, but you can build automations or systems. It's like, I'm not forcing a response, but it's just questioning yourself of how can you bring more joy in what you're doing.
Mm.
It's not stopping, don't stop what you have to do, but what can you bring in your day that can give you more energy to do the stuff that you like the least.
Mm.
That's
I
how
love
I see
that.
it.
Yeah, because one of the things that I got a lot from my clients is like they are passionate about what they do, but they are drained about creating content for social media or, yeah, as you say, admin stuff and so on. And I always relate it to the way of communicating. I always invite them first to analyze, okay, what is your natural way of communication? Because maybe you are sending audios with your friends and now you are trying to do something totally different in the way that you communicate for your business. Use things that are feel natural to you because probably that feel easier and funnier than something that you force in them. And for example, for myself, my way of communicating, I love conversations. If I need to record by myself a conversation around the same topics that we are talking today, I will be procrastinating, overthinking, over editing. But here, I am just having a conversation with a nice human being and just talking about the topics and make my brain goes to places that otherwise it will not go by themselves. So find ways that make sense for you, that somehow bring like this excitement to you. And as you say, how you can bring elements of fun and joy into the things that maybe they are less appealing to you. How you make some kind of rewards or little treats after you do something that you don't enjoy. So even if you don't have the capacity to bring someone to help you, it's like, okay, how I can do things in a way that feels less as a punishment and just something that, yeah, it's going to help in the long run. So yeah, but I know that sometimes that can be challenging, especially around content creation as a big, huge topic. And there, of course, I will tell people that think about your stories, and then at least you have clarity on what kind of stories you can share. And then it's easier for you to bring new ideas, because that's a topic that for some people is like, yeah, I don't know. I feel I need to share, but I don't know what to share about, or I don't know what to talk about. But yeah, I feel that having that clarity at least is taking one pressure off, and then decide, looking of the ways that you feel more natural communicating, I would say.
Mm. This is like, it's definitely something that I see as well in coaching people just to develop their resilience or work on their traumas or recovery. When you come to recovery and well-being as well, is presented as a one size fits all. Even if we
Mhm.
talk about adjustments and stuff, there is still this thing that I see people saying, well, meditation has never hurt anybody. Uh, it doesn't hurt to work out and move and stuff and yada yada. But it keeps like bringing me back to the days where I wasn't meditating, I wasn't working out. And one of the main reason was going back to this thing of wanting it to be perfect and it not working for me or me not enjoying it straight away. It was making me feel more like a failure,
Mm.
like, oh, well, I can't get this. And it was adding more to my already full plate of guilt and shame and exhaustion, because what everyone was raving about as a solution, I couldn't get my head around. I didn't know back then that, well, there was different ways you can enjoy it, and that what worked for me wasn't what I discovered. So I was just seeing techniques that I wasn't really enjoying, and that's it. And I believe that it wasn't made for me. And I didn't learn about what mindfulness truly meant, how I can make it my own, how I can break out of like those rules. And I think this is exactly what's happening for life in general. We're just trying to fit with rules that are not working for us. And I see people, and we talk about journaling, for example, and some people enjoy guided journaling or guided meditations or guided stuff. They need that support and framework. Some others don't. And it's okay. And in the
Mhm.
same way, some people love to write, and for some people, they just can't. And because they can't do it, if you force them to do that exercise, it's just adding, oh, another thing. Like, but for them, it's easier to record a voice note. So some of them have just like been like, fuck, I never thought about this. I can just, yeah, you don't need your journal on paper. Record your voice notes. Make a little cheer up message for yourself. And then when you feel bad, like bring it out. Like it doesn't need to be what someone said. So opening the door to reflecting and see how you can make the world work for you as opposed to trying to fit in what somebody else told you to do. Think that's what making the difference, and that's what make people resilient, is they see a door that closes and it's like, okay, what can I learn to find another way?
Mhm. Love that. And thank you for all the ideas and little exercise that you are sharing already, because I feel that if someone wants to start, that's already a starting point, a great starting point. So before we finish, um, I would love if you can summarize that connection between personal brand story and burnout prevention in a few words.
Hmm. Rewrite your narrative.
Hmm. Love that. Yes, love that. I was thinking about it. For myself, would be awareness of capacity, because I feel that's a key thing in both of them. Um, Thank you so much for all this conversation, Muna. I have loved it. How can people connect with you and learn more about what you do?
You can find me on every platform. Lucky for me, I do enjoy creating content, so you can read everything by just searching Mouna Laaragat on every social platform, or The Grit Makers on YouTube. You'll find my meditation there. Gritmakers.com is also my website. And I am also an insight timer. If you like to listen to meditations or get acquainted with what it is, there are so many different ones. So yeah, I look forward to connecting. Drop me a DM as well if you have any question, or leave a comment on this video, and I'll be happy to continue the conversation.
Amazing. And if someone is interested in learning more about the 10 Story Connector framework, they can go and visit my website. There are resources there and ideas to how they can implement that into their own stories. Yeah, I would love for people to comment in this video if they have some idea, if this conversation bring them some inspiration. We would love to hear from them. So thank you so much and see you soon.